What's going on, guys? This is the Founder Hour podcast. I'm your co-host, Pat.
And I'm Mr. Posh.
Mr. Posh. And we're coming to you with a special episode today.
Very special.
Very special episode.
Bigly special.
You want to tell them what the special episode is?
Yeah, so crazy. Have you guys heard of Uber? Just kidding. Have you guys heard of Lyft? Okay, you haven't heard of Lyft either. Okay. No. So, a few weeks ago.
Neither of those guys.
Yeah, neither of those guys. But hey, who knows? Maybe it is.
Travis Kalanick, we're ready.
Yeah, very ready. And I know you're ready because you're not really doing much, just sitting on billions. So, a few weeks ago, Pat and I got an email about an event that was happening in Los Angeles called Summit, which we've heard of.
Yep.
We heard about it a few years ago, and obviously we think it's a fantastic concept, and they bring together the brightest leaders of today's communities around the country and around the world, I think even, but this year specifically their flagship event was in LA.
And it's pretty cool because they're not focused on a particular industry. It's could be anywhere from artists, authors.
Yeah.
They say astronauts. I'm sure there's many astronauts who are part of Summit.
Really?
Maybe.
Interesting.
Philanthropists, explorers, engineers, spiritual leaders, scientists, you name it.
Where the hell did you see astronauts?
It's there.
I just saw it.
Yeah, and I mean, we met a few people that could have been astronauts. We met a lot of cool people.
Yeah, and by the way, so this is invite only. So it's invite only, and I don't know what the ticket price is. I don't think it's published.
I don't think you know until you're invited.
Yeah. So we were invited, but we weren't invited as Pat and Posh, the individuals. We were invited as Pat and Posh, the podcast co-hosts, which is huge because
big.
Yeah, it's huge because we were one of the very few podcasts that were there and recording live at Summit, which was awesome.
So this was the third year they did this in LA.
Yeah.
They've been around for 11 years. And it was the first year they decided to do a podcast activation, which was essentially they basically rented out a whole recording studio, a pro recording studio with an engineer and a camera team. And we're like, all right, well, this is a little bit different, but we'll take it. So we went, and how'd it go?
It went great, and special shout out to Janelle Gray.
Yes.
Janelle was the one that helped set it all up for us, and
shout out to Brittany for showing us around and showing us the ins and outs of Summit LA19.
Yeah, and before this even happened, we got an email, and they're like, "Oh, these are all the amazing speakers that are going to be at the summit," and we're like, "That's awesome," because frankly, Pat and I had already seen it, and
tell them the list.
Yeah, so I'm gonna open up the list of speakers. So I'm gonna start from the top. So Dara Khosrowash Hahi, I can't even pronounce his name, and I'm Armenian.
Who is that?
CEO of Uber.
No way.
Hamdi Ulakaya, founder and CEO of Chobani. We'll get to him in a bit before we go into the episode. So Hamdi was there. We actually got to see Hamdi talk. Pat and I can kind of go into that a little bit. Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn
Reid
founder.
Hoffman interviewing Robert Smith for his
Is that what
podcast,
it was?
Masters of Scale.
ASAP Rocky.
Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. ASAP Rocky was a speaker.
Yeah, was a speaker. And then we also got to see Melody Hobson, who is the president of Ariel Investments, former chairwoman of DreamWorks, current vice chairman of Starbucks.
And probably the next president of the United States.
Yeah, we asked her if she would be the next president of the United States.
She's very presidential.
She said never. But that's just a sure bet.
Believe it.
Yeah, Melody, I know you're listening. You're running for president.
A bunch of other people, Harrison Ford, founder of Beyond Meat, Ethan Brown,
Tracy Ellis Ross.
The list goes on, man.
Grandmaster Flash.
And then a lot of the founder of hip hop, and a lot of performances. Bonobo, De La Soul's Maceo, if anyone knows De La Soul.
Julianne Hough, I think, was like a last minute addition because I don't remember her.
Julianne Hough, was she teaching yoga or something?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Anyways, awesome event. We had a blast. We got to meet a lot of cool people. And two of the people we met.
Well, before we get into that, so they told us, Janelle, I know you're listening, Janelle told us, send us a list of the folks that you'd like to sit down with. So we send her a list of everyone we just told you guys about.
Everyone.
literally. And we're like, you know what? Beggars can't be
We'll do
choosers.
2 minutes each or whatever we have to do.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. We'll just interview all of them together. We'll ask them one question. You know, if you were to create your own flavor of frozen yogurt, what would it be? And
For those that don't know, that's OG Founder Hour question right there.
Yep. And if you don't know that, that means that you guys got to go back to episode 1. Well, maybe episode like 4 or 5 is when it started. But anyways, so Janelle was awesome. She got back to us and she told us that we could sit down with Alice Waters, who's a legend, big legend, especially in the food space and just kind of the movements that she's kind of been a part of.
Yeah, for those that don't know who Alice Waters is, Google her right now. She literally is like the founder of the farm to table movement, the whole idea of locally grown, locally sourced food, the slow food movement, and this is like in the 70s.
Yeah.
She was part of the free speech movement at Berkeley. She was a student there. I mean, big time activist. She's the founder of Chez Panisse, which is like, I feel like Chez Panisse is like, I don't even think it has a Michelin star, but it's like,
I think it does.
If it doesn't, it's like, I feel like it's like better than a Michelin star restaurant. Like it's like a legendary restaurant in Berkeley, California. We haven't been yet, but we are hopefully going to go soon.
Yeah, no, it does have a Michelin star.
It does have a Michelin star.
Yeah.
Okay. But,
and she's one of the first, if not the first woman to have received the James Beard Foundation Award.
In the 90s, I think, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible story. We had a chance to actually sit down with Alice and kind of pick her brain on things such as, you know, what even sparks a movement and that kind of stuff. Really interesting conversation. And then we were also joined by Elliott Bisnow, who's the founder of Summit. Incredible dude. We actually saw Elliott earlier in that day interviewing Hamdi, the founder of Chobani. And that was, I think for both of us, it was like one of the best entrepreneurial stories we've ever heard.
Yeah. What I guess my question to you, and before we hop onto the episode, I kind of wanted to touch on this because for those that haven't heard of Hamdi or Hamdi's story, after you listen to this episode of the Founder Hour, do yourself a favor and go on YouTube and listen to his TED Talk. He was also on 60 Minutes. I don't know if it was recently, but he was on 60 Minutes.
His TED Talk is awesome. It's about the anti-CEO and kind of, you know, what he's learned. I mean, this guy's a very, very successful bussman. Multi-billionaire. Chobani is literally everywhere. I'm sure you've come across Chobani if you're listening at some point in your life. But yeah, go ahead. What were you going to ask?
I was going to ask, why did you find his story so fascinating?
Why did I find his story so fascinating? Yeah, to me, like he came off as like just a straight up hustler, man. Like straight up businessman from the get go. Like no like bullshit type of guy. I feel like a lot of people, you know, have a very similar story. Like, yeah, I sold business cards or bubble gum or whatever in high school, and then like, you know, my dad gave me like $20,000, and then like I met this guy, and boom, like I created a multi-billion-dollar company. But this guy was like, I mean, like an immigrant that came here, you know, when he was much older, not even in his like younger years, and literally bought
he was like a
factory,
Kurdish like cheesemaker.
Kurdish cheesemaker. What his family was, right?
And him
came here with really no plans, and ended up buying a plant. With an SBA loan, without any idea what he was going to do, and then eventually figured out yogurt is like he went and did his due diligence and studied kind of what people are buying in stores, and basically came up with the idea for Greek yogurt, and then ended up creating such a phenomenal business. But the reason I liked him a lot was like he sees things a little bit differently than a lot of the people that we hear often, that are like thought leaders, and I think he's a fantastic thought leader, and someone that's I think underrated when it comes to just even like talking about how businesses, what the purpose of a business is, and what the purpose of a CEO is, and what the purpose of a founder is, and what the purpose of and like the whole idea of business as a do-good venture, and not just a capitalistic venture. So it was great.
And that ties pretty well into Alice Waters as well. And I think with Alice and Elliott both, we talk a lot about community. We talk a lot about different movements. And that was really kind of the focal point of this episode that you'll be hearing in a little bit. And that was what it was really about. I mean, you'll hear Alice Waters talking about how when she started Chez Panisse or was doing any of this stuff, it wasn't for any other reason than because like she wanted to. It wasn't necessarily, with intent that she was going to create a farm to table movement. She just believed that it was the right thing to do. Or, with, Hamdi, like, how he treats his employees and how he treats the community. He just believes that it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Same with Elliott, building Summit and, bringing all these people together. It was what they believed really deeply that it was the right thing. And I think that a lot of times, especially in today's world, you forget that the best businesses and the biggest impact businesses are around things that actually people believe in truly, not just, is a profit puppy, as our friends over at Robin Hood Snacks call it. Shout out Robin Hood Snacks. But it really kind of, and that's what kind of was inspiring about Hamdi and, Alice and Elliott, was they're just ordinary human beings that did extraordinary things, but because they were just
like
so
Hamdi
true to
didn't have a
themselves.
background in business. He wasn't like a tried and true entrepreneur. He was literally.
And I don't even think Alice Waters was a trained chef.
No, I don't think she even. I think like I heard an interview of hers, and I think she says she now considers herself a chef, but she never really like considered herself a chef until somebody, a really famous chef, told her like, "You are a chef." All whatever other word, but no, she was someone that just loved cooking and wanted to have like this kind of family dinner vibe, and that's really what she created, and that's still what it is today.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing I just wanted to clarify before you guys listen to the conversation was, and because it could come off a little bit, I don't want to call it confusing, but if you don't know necessarily what the topic was around, it's a little hard to really dissect the first time around. And she was really talking about more than the farm to table movement, more so, the slow food movement, right? Like we have fast food.
Yep.
She is advocating for the opposite, slow food, regenerative food, sustainable food. Those are the kind of words that you'll hear. And if you guys have any questions, and I really hope you guys do, please feel free to reach out to me and Pat after you guys listen to the episode. Shoot us a DM on Instagram, send us an email at thefounderhour.com, hello@thefounderhour.com, or our name's Posh, Pat at founderhour.com. And ask us this question, ask us whatever questions you may have about the topic at hand. Perhaps we can even ask Alice and Elliott to kind of elaborate on those topics as well. But that's really what the conversation was about. And I really hope you guys enjoy, because it was very different than, the typical Founder Hour episodes that we do, delving into their stories. This was really more so delving into their mindsets of why they did what they did and the impact that it's had in the future, which is really cool. I think we focus a lot on what the future holds when you focus on building community and building movements. So we had a great time, and
before we kick it off, wanted to say, please, if you haven't subscribed and given us a 5-star rating, ideally, or just giving us a rating and a review, please do so. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it's a little complicated, so just scroll down from where you're listening.
Scroll all the way down, and you'll see it at the bottom.
Yeah, 5 stars.
It's just there's stars, and you just click on one of them, ideally the 5th one, and write a nice little review. It really goes a long way. That really helps us reach more and more people, and that's really the way our podcast will grow more and more, and try to reach more and more people, so we can keep, we'll keep doing this, but we can keep reaching more people and inspiring more people. So thank you guys so much. Here we go.
What's up, everybody? We're here at Summit LA19. We're the Founder Hour podcast. I'm your co-host, Posh.
I'm Pat.
And we're lucky enough here to be with the co-founder of Summit, Elliott Bisnow, and the legendary Alice Waters, who I'm sure you all have heard of. And so we're so excited to be here, Elliott. What you've put on the past 11 years has been truly incredible. And I would love to kind of hear why you did it and where it's at now, and really kind of inspire the audience as to why they should be involved with this community as well.
Well, communities change the world. And that's been our passion for 11 years. And that's where things start. And we spend so much of our time and focus talking about big ideas and big politics and big visions, but everything needs roots. And I live in Utah, in a 4,000 person town. And I'm deeply engaged in my community, and community's been my passion. We see people starting business around technology, around products, and everything I've ever done is around community. and around getting people together.
Yeah. And do you remember, like, was there a moment like throughout your life where that became like real, like, I want to do this for the rest of my life, I want to focus on building a community, or was it something that you just grew up with like your whole life?
I started business in college with my dad, and I didn't know anybody. And in my pursuit of meeting other people, I realized I really, really loved finding passionate, interesting, kind, open people. And as that pursuit of interesting people continued, I became more and more excited when you met the real groundbreaking people and the people doing the work. And this event is 2,500 people. We're in downtown Los Angeles, and it's multidisciplinary. It's people of every imaginable background, and it's talks, it's content, it's music, it's art, and it's about coming together, meeting other people, and asking ourselves, can business be good for the world? And can we collaborate? And can we leave here? Can we leave the end of the year? Can we leave the end of the decade? Having put something positive into the world.
And I think, Alice, that's a great kind of segue to you as well. Is you've put that at the forefront of what you've done, right? You put community and you put the world ahead of the businesses. You started the businesses that you started and done what you've done because of that. Why was that the case? Whether it was the restaurant, whether it's the books, whether it's just the movements in general, what inspired you to put the world and others before you and what you were doing?
Well, I wasn't looking at the time to build a community. I kind of had one living in Berkeley and going to the University of California in the 60s, Berkeley in the 60s, that you felt like you were part of a movement. And it was really empowering to me. It said to me, do whatever you're going to do, but do it as well as you can, and people will come, and they'll eat in your restaurant if you open a restaurant. And it never occurred to me that I was just this person who was starting a restaurant as a woman. It never occurred to me that I couldn't be successful because I had all these friends in Berkeley. Yeah. And if the food was good enough, they would come.
Totally. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because, like, I feel like, with you it was more so it became a movement, and I'm sure there's a lot of work that you put in, like, behind the scenes to push that movement even further. But in your case, Elliott, you saw this real vision that you wanted to, actually actively focus on building a community. But I guess, how does it, as Posh mentioned, it's 11 years now. How does it come to this point? Like, how does that community grow? Like, what are the like the things that you have to do if you're trying to build a community, or what you've learned?
Well, I started Summit because I wasn't part of any community. I wasn't invited to anything. I didn't have any mentors or any peers who were also entrepreneurs. And that word's thrown around a lot, but it means someone who wants to put their dream into the world, and they want to build it with their bare hands, and they want to face the obstacles. And so when it came to meeting those types of people, I didn't know anyone. And so I set out to build a community. And the community started really small. At first I thought I just wanted to meet maybe a half a dozen people. And the first summit ever was 19 people. But everyone who came for a reason, and they left realizing that they had other friends who also wanted to be part of this new entrepreneurial movement. And the next event was 60 people, and 6 months later it was 120 people. And over the last decade, it's grown to tens and tens of thousands of people who are entrepreneurs who want to be part of this movement. And I think the way that the community shifted is that there was a belief, almost a myth now, that entrepreneurship will save the world. And that's not right. Building a business doesn't save the world. Building a business with purpose, and building a business that has awareness of the planet and the communities that you live in, building a business that actually believes what's good for business should be good for the world, that is the future of entrepreneurship. And so we've seen that shift over the last decade of Summit, and here that's the big focus on the content and the types of people that come. Everyone's asking that question.
Mm-hmm. Looking back, did you envision this, what it became? Did you think that this is what it would become, and even beyond this, like this would be such a big impact in the communities that Summit was in?
Well, I think at the very beginning, almost nobody envisions something very grand because you start something out of a true passion. You really just start something small, and then it's generally a couple of years in that you start to form this bigger idea. Wow, this community is really catching on. There's a few hundred people, and if there's a few hundred people, maybe there could be a few thousand people. Wow, this food movement is really catching on in this community. Maybe it could spread to other communities.
Yeah, and kind of, Alex, I know you kind of reacted to what he was saying. I know back in Berkeley, you were really involved in the free speech movement, and that's when that massive movement was happening. How did the learnings of that impact the movement that you ended up creating in the food industry, in the food space?
Well, I think it was really, really important that we, as a movement, we were able to stop the war in Vietnam. It was such an important thing at that time, and it meant everything to all of us that we could come together and really get the government to stop the war. And yes, unfortunately, students were killed at Kent State to bring that awareness. But we felt so empowered. And I've never lost that hopefulness. I carry with if we can gather together, and if we are really determined, we can change the world. And I know it feels so impossible at this moment. And climate change is upon us.
Right.
But I so believe that if we were to really, know for sure that regenerative agriculture could bring down that carbon into the ground where it belongs, if we understood that our own health depends on that food grown in that way, and that at the same time that we could save the planet, I think really that people would think about what they were eating and eat with determination, understand where it came from, and support the people who were doing the right thing. I think we are so lost in this fast food culture. I call it that because I think when we eat the values that come with the food. So when you're eating fast food, you want something fast, cheap, and easy. You want something uniform. You want it available 24/7. You don't care where it came from. You don't care how it's produced. Cooking is drudgery. Farming is drudgery.
Yeah.
And you are really, and it's okay, more is better. Time is money. And these are the values that have really changed our world and have disconnected us to nature. But if, you just, if I had a chance, I always wanted a chance to give Bill Clinton a peach. I just thought if he tasted a ripe peach at the right moment, he would have an epiphany.
Yeah.
And he would understand the power of food. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Did you ever give him or any president a peach?
I think Obama took a peach, didn't he?
What?
Did Obama ever take a peach?
Or did you ever have a food moment with someone like that where you put something in front of them that fresh that changed the perspective?
Well, I have given many, many politicians a perfect Kishu Mandarin or whatever was of the moment. And it is, I don't know, but I feel like it created an awareness. And I'm always wanting to feed people ideas. I don't want to talk about it. I want them to sit down and taste it, because we've lost our senses, the discernment. We're not smelling. We're not really tasting. We're not listening, seeing.
And can I ask Alice a question? When you reflect back on the countercultural movements that became mainstream that you were a part of, you talked about the Vietnam War, the new American food movement and the connection to the food and the roots and the soil, and you reflect back on, how Edible Schoolyard and how that seemed wild when it launched, and now every parent wants, that should needs to be in my school. What similarities do you see in these countercultural movements that really gain roots and grow?
I see that I'm a Montessori teacher. I came from that movement, which is an education movement that began at the beginning, at the end of the last century. Yeah. And Maria Montessori was an Italian who was a doctor. And she really wanted to work with the people that were poor in Naples and in India, because they were sensorially deprived. And that is what is so interesting to me, is that we have a nation, really a world, that is sensorially deprived, not just because of hunger and poverty, but because of an indoctrination by a fast food culture. Right. And so I think the idea of education is the place where we can reach all children when they're young and open, and we can bring them into a relationship with nature, and who's a better teacher? And food is the best teacher.
And Alice, obviously that's something that is already, kind of that you're already doing, but how do you see yourself, spreading that message to the masses? Of course, sitting down with them one-on-one. I mean, when you talk about oranges and peaches, I'm just getting hungry. But how can you do that on a mass scale where you send that message across and you change that messaging from early days? Because obviously, you see parents feeding their kids fast food all the time, and they're not helping the problem. They're just creating a bigger one.
Well, I think we have to go to the public school system, and we have to really change school lunch. So I have a whole group of us with the Edible Schoolyard Project have proposed a free regenerative school lunch for every kid in the state of California. And by supporting the farmers and the ranchers who are taking care of the land for the future. So buying directly, which is what we've done at Chez Panisse for almost 50 years now, is thought to be impossibly hard. But again, that's an indoctrination from a fast food company that would like to continue to feed our children in school food that's making them sick.
And you're using a word, regenerative, which when did you start using that word in mainstream conversations? And putting it forward into Edible Schoolyard, for example.
Right. Actually, about 6 months ago, when Ron Finley was on stage with me in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he said, Alice, stop using that word sustainable, because sustaining means being at the level that we are at right now. And we're so low down. We're so below.
We're sustaining bad.
Exactly. He says it's regenerative. Use that word to regenerate. And I've had that confirmed in so many conferences I've been to recently. One very important one at Al Gore's farm in Tennessee. And one of the main speakers was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's this guy named Zach Bush, who's a doctor. Isn't he amazing?
Yep.
You know him. And he talked about how regenerative agriculture could actually rebuild our immune systems. And I felt like I had a whole digestive system that was like the roots of the plants, that all of those enzymes that are going into the plant was so similar to what was happening inside me. I felt related to the plant. And I just, that is a connection to nature that seems so, I don't know, just so amazing to me that we could eat that food and become well again.
And I love how you bring that up, because I feel like at least like when you think of what, speaking of movements, like what is that message? What is something that people get behind? It's always, when you really boil it down, it's like, what is the most relatable thing that you can apply to your own life, and that sort of like gets multiplied and multiplied and multiplied.
Well, just to follow up on what you're saying, I mean, the concept that entrepreneurship is good for the world is wrong. If you're, people, you have a business idea, so you can make money and put a worthless plastic product into the world, that's wrong. And that same shift in food, I mean, organic is only good for you, right? And I think that shift you're talking about, where we need to shift to food we're eating that's regenerating the soil and regenerating the planet, it reminds me of me preaching about the shift in entrepreneurship. It is not just about you making money and good for your consumers. What about the planet?
Yeah.
And we're asking the same questions in our different spaces.
And Elliott and Alice, why don't you think people are focusing on that more? I mean, because it seems like sustainability and all this stuff are these buzzwords, but why aren't people taking action?
Because we are sensorially deprived. We have lost our connection to nature. We think when we buy organic food that's enough. But we really need to know where everything comes from. We need to really go out and see the farm. We need to eat together. We need to cook together. We need to be in the season of the year at that moment in time. When you are disconnected and you're feeling like you can have anything you want anytime you want it because you got the money to buy it and it comes to your door
Easy
now.
access.
I mean, it's those values that we've lost. And so it's so much easier to have them come back when you're 5 years old. And that's why I'm focused on the public school system.
Because they don't know
Our
what it's like
last
not to.
truly democratic institution, really. And I want to go there. And I think the children bring home the messages to their family. But they will never forget. They never miss a class at the Edible Schoolyard Project. If it's in the garden or the kitchen classroom. And we're not teaching cooking and gardening per se. This is a math class. It's a history class. It's a science class. But, the Edible Schoolyard really began 25 years ago in one school. Okay? One school. And now we have tried to map the network. And it's almost in 7,000 places around the world. And it's not because we found those people, but they just connected because they shared the value of nourishment, stewardship, and community.
Right.
And so I feel like I could go to any one of those schools and feel like I had friends.
Yeah, it just goes to say, like, when you have a really strong belief in something, like, just put it out there in the world, however you do it.
That's right.
There's going to be people that agree with you and want to help you.
I mean, it's like the rightness of something. I think we have the gene still inside us. It resonates. These are ideas. I mean, everybody eats, or
Right.
we all have to eat to
part of
live.
human.
It's a universal. I mean, community, children have always been a really important, since the beginning of civilization, for millennia. Taking care of nature, because that's where our food comes from. So these aren't, ideas we dreamed of. We're just we're breathing life into them. Right? That's what we're doing. We're breathing real life into them. Not a made up kind of value, but not like more is better
Yeah.
I remember 7 years ago.
to make money.
I remember 7 years ago, I was tidying up my house, feeling really good about how clean I was, throwing things in the trash. And my wife, she said, "Where do you think all that trash goes?" And I'm like, "Well, they take it away." She's like, "Well, where's away?"
Yeah.
Yeah, where is
She's
the
like,
way?
"There is no away." I'm like, and I had never thought of
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
I thought it was in time.
Like some vacuum that just like
Yeah.
goes
Yes.
into the world and, it just disappears.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
and then as soon, ignorance is bliss.
For sure.
Because as soon as I knew, then I was
That's
culpable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with all these things?
And-
Do I need to?
And we were having a conversation the other day with someone who's in that fashion upcycling, recycling space, and was telling us like these companies like H&M and Forever 21 burning the clothing and how just the negative impact of the environment, right? And you think, like you talk about fast food and fast fashion and slow food and slow fashion, right? It's all a part of that. We want it right now, right? It's that culture of I want it right now. I want success right now. I want money right now. I want all the happiness and joy right now. But it's almost like the journey no longer exists. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter,
It's
right?
But in fact, it is cooking, chopping by hand, making that, and having people like what you're making. That gives you this kind of incredible satisfaction. I mean, that I gave you something, and it can't. There's no replacement for that kind of feeling
Right.
that you get.
Going back to you, Elliot, how do you? I mean, after all these years, you've built this thing, and I can, you're still very much involved. How do you see Summit sustain, like I guess transcending like what you built, and once you're no longer involved, whenever that may be, is that something that like you've already started putting into motion, or how's that going to work?
Well, the best part about the Summit community is that we never raised any money from investors over 11 years. And so whenever you have a startup and you start the startup and you raise your first little bit of money at any little valuation and they want a 50x return, then your destiny is preordained.
Right.
Yes.
And you have to go for a big, big company. And so we've never done that. And we have an amazing team of 50 people. And then we have 400 more people who work at the events. And our goal has been to build a community. Mm-hmm. And our number one value has been, not like we say, ROC, return on community, not return on capital. And so we've just been building events and we've been building the community. And I heard someone say once, scale or fail. And that's not what we're doing. You have a chance to do more and more and more, or you could do less better.
Right. I feel like if anyone was to look at this event or just what the events you guys put on, like they would probably not think that you only have 50 people behind this thing, but you've clearly been able to do so much with a lean team, and that's what a lot of people don't really understand, how much you can do with the right people.
Yeah, our mission has been to do less better, to really focus on community. We built a fellows program. We have 83 fellows from around the world that we are plugging in this Summit community. I think the opportunity, we're building a community of inspired, activated entrepreneurs and citizens, and the opportunity to plug activists into the community, the opportunity to plug, entrepreneurs from around the globe who wouldn't otherwise be in the community, to bring diversity in youth and diversity from different cities, diversity in background. So for us, it's about building the community in a better, more thoughtful way, rather than growing and growing and growing. That's never been our goal.
I love it. Alice, when you started Chez Panisse back, you said, what, 40, 50 years ago?
48 years.
48 years. What was your vision? I know that you had just kind of started dabbling in that space, but what was the vision back then versus what it is now?
Well, I wanted it to be a neighborhood restaurant. I never thought about it as being more than that. That it was in a house, and I wanted you to feel like you were coming to dinner at some friend's house. And I have never lost that sense of it, even though we got a little bit bigger house. I mean, building the cafe upstairs. Yeah. But it's that with the open kitchen and wanting to just demystify what it was to be in a restaurant. You can come in the kitchen. You feel part of it. And I wanted the family of Chez Panisse, I call it La Famille Panisse, because it's just grown and grown and grown. There's so many people who have worked in the restaurant over this period of time. And it's people that share those values and collaborate in the conversation. I'm sure you do that. Is how can we fine tune this? We never, every year we decide, do we want to do it again? And then we feel like we're challenged. We want to keep it alive. We are doing what we need to do. We never want to be on automatic where we're not engaged. And that's really kept it alive. And I think people do feel that when they work, but we have an internship program. And we have students from Cal who come for 4 years and work as busboy or work in the kitchen. And they take away these values. And I'm sure they will not forget them because they're really important to all of us. And so it's always a work in progress, and it's always meeting the most interesting people. I can't say enough about that it's full of people that are in just all different kinds of work, and art is terribly important for.
Yeah. One question I had, I heard an
Yeah.
interview of you recently that you're on, and you mentioned like when you were starting Chez Panisse, you just got a lot of people around you to give you money without any expectation to get the money back. It was more so like, you're really good at this, we want you to do it, here's our money. And I think that goes to show, like, when someone is really behind something, whether it's a business or a movement or whatever, then they'll do what they can to help. But was that the reason? Like, was there any other, like, why do you think that was that? How
They
did
were
that happen?
like, they wanted a restaurant to eat, so they could eat with their friends.
One final question for both of you.
Yeah.
I know it's not coming anytime soon, but what is the final meal that you two want to have?
Together?
Together and individually.
Pasta and pesto.
Ooh, I'll share that with
And
you.
we're going to make the pesto from our basil plant.
I love it.
It's always, so that's the only way to make it. People ask that question, and I'm always torn. I think it has to be a salad for me. And it has to probably be in that beautiful chicory place in the winter when it's every color. Maroon and yellow with spots on it, green spots. And you're just eating, this. It almost feels like you're eating some artistic.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I'm going to take mine back and have salad with Alice.
No,
I want to eat that salad too.
We're going to have pasta pesto, and then we're going to have the chicken salad.
I love it.
2 course.
Elliott,
courses.
Alice, this has been a fantastic time.
thank
It's
you
been
both so
super
much.
inspiring, and I really hope that the listeners really take away something from this and really apply it to their lives as opposed to just consume it. And I hope that you guys continue to both do the work that you're doing and continuing to inspire and build community and make a difference. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.